Good evening, Ponto de Luz. It's such a joy to be here with you every Thursday and study the Spirit's book. So today we're going to start on question 157. We're still on chapter 3, the return from the corporeal to the spirit life. And today we're going to start on question 157. Very important for us to understand the following questions. But before we do anything, let's start the right way with our prayer. So thank you, God, for bringing us here tonight together in good health to study the Spirit's book, to learn and to connect with the healing energies of the spirituality. We ask for every single home that is watching us now to receive that healing and to make light on their neighborhoods. And with your permission, Lord, we start the study of this evening. So be it. I have a different setting today here. Do you notice? Getting used to it, but now I'm reading face to face. So good. Question 157. At the moment of death, does the soul sometimes experience a yearning or an ecstasy entailing a foreglimpse of the world to which it is about to return? So let's read it again slowly so we can understand the question. At the moment of death, so when the spirit is having that rupture of the ties done, at that moment, does the soul sometimes experience a yearning or an ecstasy entailing a foreglimpse of the world to which it is about to return? So how is the feeling, right? We studied the previous questions all about how this detangling is done, right? The bonds that connect the spirit to the body, and when death comes, how is that separation? Question 155 was a very good question for us to understand. Question 157 will give you that how the spirit feels in that moment. So this is what the spirits answered Kardec. The soul often feels that the bonds holding it to the body are loosening. That was the word I was trying to look for. Loosening. And consequently, it employs all its efforts to break them entirely. Already partially released from matter, it beholds the future unfolding before it, and in anticipation, it enjoys the spirit state. So we're gonna read it again and explain, but we saw that there are different ways or different timing that this separation occurs, right? When it's a disease that takes the person slowly, so that loosening of the ties happens gradually, and sometimes in some cases it's almost instantaneous for some people. I'm going to remit to the question 155 so we can understand what we're going to study tonight. So on the other hand, intellectual and moral activity and elevated thoughts initiate this separation even during corporeal life, and when death finally occurs, it is almost instantaneous. So this part that I just read is at the note, Kardec's note on question 155. Why am I reading that again? Because for us to understand 157 and 158, we're going to have to remit to it. So let's understand 157. So the soul often feels that the bonds holding it to the body are loosening. And we gave a number of examples. So if you want to study the previous questions in details, please watch the video for last Thursday. And everything is there. Question 154, 155. And consequently, it employs all its efforts to break them entirely. So the spirit at that point is aware and putting efforts to break those bonds. Already partially released from matter, it beholds the future unfolding before it, and in anticipation, it enjoys the spirit state. So, does that work for everyone? Is everyone feeling the same thing? No. We're going to see that on the following questions. So, Kardec even uses the example of the caterpillar, right? Getting out of the chrysalis, or that little cocoon that the butterfly comes to life from. So, and then on question 159, we're going to understand how different it is depending on how you lived your life. We always say that. It always depends. The what you're going to find on the spiritual world is absolutely related to how we live our lives here. Question 158. Can the example of the caterpillar, which begins by crawling on the ground, then shuts itself up in its chrysalis, in apparent death, to be reborn into a brilliant existence, provide us an idea of terrestrial life, followed by the grave, and then a new existence? I love how Kardec has this positive view of spiritual world, right? It's amazing because at that moment, he already understands, after all the communications of the spirits, after everything that was studied. So the Spirits book could be published in 1857. This is how he sees and feels about it, that when we cross over, when we return from the corporeal to the spirit life, we would become the butterflies. The spirits gave an answer that you would say, that should be it, right? And that's not quite exactly that, but I love the fact that he's so poetic about death, right? He understands that it's a transition to a better state. It's not a loss, it's not a sorrow. And for us, I think we live our lives trying to keep that. When things happen, a disease, or we lose someone, then we understand, sometimes we fail to understand that this poetic vision of death is to me very comforting, to see that we are like the butterflies coming out of the chrysalis. And the spirits answered Kardec if that would be a good comparison. Guess what was the answer? A pale idea. Pale, like something that is not completely it. The image is good, but you must not take it literally, as you are always prone to do. So the spirits correct him and say, yeah, it is a pale idea. If you can understand that as not 100% what it is, then it's okay. But if you take it literally, then not. Question 159. What sensation does the soul experience at the moment it realizes that it is in the spirit world? And because of this question 159 is that we started reading a bit of the note on question 155. That's what the spirits answered Kardec. That depends. If it has done evil for the love of it, the spirit is at first ashamed of what it has done. However, it experiences something completely different if it has been morally upright. And this is why we read that. It feels relieved of a great weight and does not fear the most scrutinizing glance. So let's pause here and break it into so we can understand, right? So exactly the explanation that we had on question 155 completely, and then again, go back to last class if you have to review it. But question 159 confirms that. So how is the sensation that the soul experiences when realizes that they arrived. That depends. If it has done evil for the love of it, intentionally, right? Because sometimes we do things that, let's be honest, we try to do better, but sometimes we will fail because we don't know, or because we couldn't make it that time the way we expected to make it. That is not what Kardec is saying here, what the spirits are saying here. They're saying the ones that do evil for the love of it, intentionally doing evil, when you really try to harm someone for the pleasure of it. So for those, the spirit, when it is awakened on the spiritual world, when it arrives there, is at first ashamed of what is done. Because we know as spiritists that when not tied to matter or to the physical body, when we are in the spiritual world, we have complete knowledge of our past lives, of what our commitments were here in the here and the now, what we did good, what was not accomplished 100%. And when the spirit faces that reality that was obscured by matter in the physical world, and it has done evil for the love of it, they will be ashamed. They will be ashamed, and many of them will beg, implore, will really try to get another opportunity to come back and do it again in better terms, with better choices. Now, the second part of the answer says, however, it experiences something completely different if it has been morally upright. It feels relieved of a great weight and does not fear the most scrutinizing glance. It does not fear what is going to be asked. It's like, let me give you an example. You study for the test. You're ready. You understood everything. When the test comes, when you're about to take that quiz, you feel relieved when it's over. You know it. You did your best. You studied. So you go and you face that with no fear. You're prepared. When you don't study and you look at that piece of paper and you don't even know how to start answering those questions, you feel ashamed. You should have studied. You should have done better. This is more or less, if we can use some sort of comparison that comes to mind right now, I would say that. So when the spirit knows they did good, they try to help others, they try to live in charity, prayer, enlightening themselves to better serve in this world. Those spirits, when they return to the spirit world, it is a relief. It's like what it says here. It feels relieved of a great weight and does not fear the scrutinizing glance. It's very comforting to know those things, right? Because we know that a lot of things, and the Valdo said that, right, multiple times in the good that you do erases your past of mistakes, of wrongdoings, and we know that. We know that we have a number of existences of wrongdoing, and we're right now putting all our efforts to do the best we can. Best we can. And that will give us, when we return to the spiritual world, that peace, that relief, that, okay, I did the best I could. Why not start today? Today. When we finish here tonight, say a prayer for someone. Say a prayer for someone that you care. Send a message inspiring someone. Do something good, something for yourself. Read a book that makes you understand and feel better about your existence as a spirit. We have so many. The Spirit's book is one of them, but we have so many different options and resources for us to become better. And getting to read and getting to know without putting into practice does not help us. We have to put it into practice. So, question 160. Does a spirit immediately meet those whom it knew upon the earth and who died before it? I love this question. Does a spirit immediately meet those whom it knew upon the earth and who died before it? So this is what we think. So when it comes my turn, will I meet my grandparents there? Will I meet my friends that, how the spirit book said, who died before me? Would that happen? And the answer from the spirits is yes, depending on the affection they had for one another. The link, the true link, is love. So, depending on the affection they had for one another. Let's put it this way. Let's pause here. You have a very good friend coming to visit you, your best friend. You're not only going to be waiting for your friend at home, you're going to be at the airport, you're going to be at the train station, right? Same thing. The closest you are to that person, you want to be there to receive them. So the spirits that care for us and have that strong link of affection, they would be waiting for us. And that's amazing. Now, you're not going to go to the airport to see everyone that comes on arrivals, right? So the same way, depending on how strong it is, that connection, that love, that link. Continuing, they almost always come to receive it as it strives to return to the spirit world, and they may even help free it from the bonds of matter. It also sees many whom it has lost sight of. It had lost sight of during its sojourn on earth. Moreover, it sees those who are in erraticity and goes to visit those who are still incarnate. So, very, very beautiful question. So let's read it again because has a lot of information. They almost always come to receive it as it strives to return to the spirit world, and they may even help free it from the bonds of matter. So not only to receive them because they have that link of affection, but sometimes to help them to free themselves from the bonds of matter. So they even help in that process. It also sees many whom it had lost sight of during its sojourn on earth. So you will even meet with people that you lost sight, that you didn't have that continuously connected on earth. Moreover, it sees those who are in erraticity and goes to visit those who are still incarnate. So it's beautiful. And we know that the affection that we built lasts for lives. Lasts for lives, lasts forever. So the bonds of affection, they're not to be broken. The spirits that are kind, the kindred spirits, the ones that are like travel together and help each other. And in multiple times, one is going to be here, incarnate, and the other one is going to be guiding from the spiritual world, and vice versa. But they remain on the journey together. And that's so comforting, so comforting. And that level of affection will permit that when the person returns after being here in matter and goes back to the spiritual world and, as we call, die, right? Then they would be there waiting for them, anxiously to give that hug. So that's why there's that song, right? Encontros e Despedidas, that it talks about arrivals and departures in an airport, in life. When one leaves here, it's a sadness for the ones that stay, that are gonna miss. But for the ones that are on the spiritual world waiting for him or her, that's a joy. That's a moment of celebration. Our friend is back. So the same situation, seeing on two different points of view, will bring those feelings. So we always know that when somebody that departs and had a good life here, we say, oh, that good friend is going to be there to receive him or her. And in times like we've been living with so many collective, right, deaths, and so much that we witnessed in the last year, it's very comforting to know that we're never alone. We're never in abandonment. We're never. We have God, and we also have those familiar spirits, those kind spirits, loving souls that help us through our journey here, and also will be waiting for us there to see us, and also not only just see us, but to help us in the process of freeing ourselves from matter. So we have time still for another question. So 161. In violent or accidental death, car crash, something like that, when the organs are not yet debilitated with age or disease, does the separation of the soul and the cessation of life occur simultaneously? So when the person dies and the death is not like with a chronic disease that, slowly takes the person, or for age, for wear and tear. So when it's violent or accidental, does the separation of the soul and cessation of life occur simultaneously? So life is interrupted. Is that the same with the separation of the soul? This is what the spirits answered Kardec. Usually so. In case, however, the instant that separate them is very short. So, usually so. In any case, however, the instant that separates them is very short. So we see that sometimes when life is interrupted abruptly like that, even if, this is what the spirits teach us, even if the separation does not occur at that moment, it's instants apart. But it's, like I said last class, so there's a very harsh subject in some books that we see, and I read a couple of them when I was young, too young to understand that process of separation, and it kind of traumatized me. And reading the Spirit's book after that, after I read the romance or the storytelling, I feel that the Spirit's book brings us necessary information, but in a tone that is comforting, that is, that permit us to not feel anguish or fear. But no, it's a process. We're going to have help when the time comes, and it's going to come for all of us. After all, this is the only thing certain that we're going to all go through this transition, and that is common to all of us in matter. That's what I mean. Of course, we have a lot of certainties. The Spirit is eternal. God is unique, supremely just and good. We have a lot of certainties, but the one thing in common to all of us is that we're, progressing in our journey as spirits, and also that one day we're going to leave this body and return to the spiritual world. So I hope you enjoyed this class, and I'm so glad that we can have this time together. Next Thursday we'll be together again, but before we go, let's say our final prayer and thank God for these moments. So thank you, Lord, for bringing us together tonight in study and prayer, in understanding, comforting our souls. We're never alone. Be with us, Lord, through those remaining days of this week. Protect our families, our homes. And with your permission, we end the study of this evening. We'll see you next Thursday. We have our study in Portuguese, Sunday, 12 p.m. And before that on Tuesday as well, at 8 p.m. But in English, we'll see you again next Thursday. Have a great, restful evening, and thank you for joining us.